Hello, fellow book readers. My name is John, and today I'm going to go over my January 2026 reading recap. So in January, I read 18 books, but do not worry, this video is not going to be that long because 16 of those books were Dresden Files books. I read book 3, from book 3, Grave Peril, all the way through book 17, which is Battleground, plus one short story collection in the Dresden Files universe in January. But I won't be talking about each book individually in this video because I have since finished the rest of the series in February, both the last book that just came out, 12 Months, and one of the other short story collections, and I am going to make a whole video on that next week, a tier list video. I'm going to tier list every Dresden Files book individually and talk about them a little bit. So I'm not going to do that today. What I will do is I will talk about the series as a whole just a little bit, just give some brief overview thoughts, not go too deep into it. But I will say I am glad that I read the Dresden Files in its entirety last month. It was just a really fun time for the most part. I won't say it's a series that's going to be one of my favorites. It's not even going to be in my top 10. It has a lot of peaks and valleys, but the peaks are really high, and I think it has something for everybody, because what I think Jim does really well as an author is he brings a bunch of different mythology and stories to the page. So, if you like horror, there's going to be a lot of horror in here. There's vampires and werewolves and things like that. If you like fairy tales, there's a lot of that in this series because there's fae, and that whole world is very fleshed out. If you like just crime dramas, there's a lot of that in here. There's basically Law and Order, CSI type stuff going on in this series. If you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer style comedy, there's a lot of that in here. If you like old fables, there's a lot of that in here. There's Bigfoot and things of that nature going on in this series. There's just a lot of different references. If you're heavy into sort of different religions, there's a lot of that in here. There's fallen angels and demons and hell. There's Greek mythology in here. There's Norse mythology in this series. He brings all these different sort of tales to life in this series, and I think it's just very interesting. While sticking with the crime sort of drama of it all, and it's very interesting how he connects those dots. And I do think, different books are going to be good for different people, while other books are not going to be as good for different people, just because each book focuses on sort of a different thing. For example, book 3 focuses on vampires, and then book 4 focuses on the fae. And it's if you like vampires, you're going to like book 3. If you don't like fae, you're not going to like book 4, and then vice versa. So that's just sort of how it is. I don't think every book's going to hit for everybody, and that certainly was the case for me. But I'll go over that more in my tier list. I will say I'm very happy I read it, and I understand why it's the golden standard of urban fantasy. It really set the benchmark high. For me, I would still put the Greenbone Saga as my favorite urban fantasy, but this is a remarkable series, and I can't wait to see how he wraps it up when he eventually does. But also on the positive side, each book is not super long. They're all mostly between 120,000 and 150,000 words. Now there are some outliers, some that are below 120,000 and some that are, and there's 2 that are above 150,000, but for the most part they're between 120 and 150,000 words. So these are books that you can read in a couple days pretty easily. But let's talk about the 2 books I can get into a little bit more detail about. This would be the first book that I actually read in January. That would be Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I love this book. I gave this book 4.5 stars. It's a near perfect book for me. This is one of the first books that he got published. Not one of the first books he wrote, because he wrote a bunch of books before he got published. But the weird thing is, I think it doesn't feel like it. The world building in this book is up to his standards in his later books. If you read later Stormlight books, or if you read some of the later Secret Project books, some of the Secret Project books, like Trust of the Emerald Sea, for example. The world building in this holds up just as well as in any of those books. And that's what I really love about this book, is the world building. I just think the descriptions of the kingdom was very, very interesting, and the culture in the kingdom and the society of itself. I think it was all done very, very well and meticulously. The magic system, Breath, super, super visually stunning magic system. Is it my favorite Brandon Sanderson magic system? Obviously not. But in terms of visuals, I think it's probably his best that I've read so far. I still haven't read Elantris yet. Still haven't read Yumi and the Nightmare Painter yet. So those two, might be able to compete with it. But in terms of the ones I've read, in terms of visuals, this probably takes the cake. Now, where this book also is really strong in is characters. There's a bunch of different point of view characters in this book, and even some characters who aren't point of view characters, who are, I would consider them main characters, and every single one of those characters hits. I'm not even joking. I enjoyed every single character that was a viewpoint character in this book. The Ciri and Viviana characters, okay, so the main part of the story is this king has to send off his daughter to marry this god emperor who is considered evil by most people. So he ends up sending the younger daughter off when he was supposed to send the older daughter off. And then the older daughter goes to rescue the younger daughter. So that's the main plot, and I'm not spoiling anything with that. You will learn that in the first 20 pages. That is the synopsis of this book. So you get these two sisters, and they're like very, very different, but you can feel the family connection between them in ways that I think other authors struggle to write. It really worked out here. And I like the differences between the two, because it's like clear that Ciri, the one who gets sent to marry the God Emperor, like he's like more of a wild child and more willing to take risks and more willing to speak her mind. And she has this sort of courage that I would say Viviana doesn't have, but it's a different kind of courage, because like she is terrified of the God Emperor, whereas Viviana would not have been. But she's also willing to adapt and change, and Viviana isn't. Viviana, while being more suited, while being like more, I would say, courageous in a different way, is also just like very rigid and stern, and I would say almost like conservative in the way she like dresses and everything like that. Not willing to take risks. So yeah, I really like that there was like a big distinction between the two sisters, but it didn't stop them from having like love and caring for each other. It really worked. And then you just have some other like top of the list characters. I think the God Emperor is an awesome character with an awesome backstory. I think Vasher, if there's any problem I had in this book, I wish Vasher was in the book more. It's probably why the book gets 4.5 stars for me instead of 5, because I love Vasher. Vasher was awesome. Obviously, you learn more about Nightblood here, and Nightblood is in the Stormlight Archive. It's the sword that talks. Probably my favorite talking sword that I've ever read. Just a really, really good sword. Just a really, really good character. That's what I meant to say. Is it better than the Empire of the Vampire sword that talks? It's close. Those two are really close. Those are definitely my two favorite talking swords. I really, really enjoyed the Nightblood stuff in this book. I thought it just worked on so many levels. When you get a talking sword, you can really like screw that up and make it too cheesy. That wasn't the case here. And the talking sword really did provide some humor that I think the book otherwise would have missed and needed. So I'm glad that character was in this book. And then we got Bright Song. And I think Bright Song's story in this book is the best story of the book. The end of that, his arc made me tear up a little bit. Just such a great character. So yeah, I just really, really enjoyed the characters of this book. And I think their arcs, because they all had arcs that all tied together at the end, but they were all different at different points, really all worked and really kept me invested. I think it was like the perfect length for this book. If it was any longer, it would have been too long. If it was any shorter, I don't think he would have been able to tell the story as well as he could have. So yeah, really enjoyed this one. 4.5 stars. Definitely my favorite Brandon Sanderson standalone so far. Again, I do have a few left that I have to read. Okay, and then the last book that I read in January is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time manga. It's the Legendary Edition. Now, I don't read manga. I don't really read comics. I don't read either of those two formats of reading. But if you couldn't tell from the two Mario 64 paintings behind me, I am a pretty big Nintendo fan. So I saw this, and I was like, oh yeah, I gotta read that. Ocarina of Time was one of my favorite games growing up. I still think it holds up today. I wanted to read this because I think the Ocarina of Time story is great, but that video game isn't really about the story. Like, it's there, but you don't get as much of the characters as perhaps you would want. In this you do, and they do have to change the story up just like a tiny bit to make it all make sense, because Link doesn't talk. He's a silent protagonist in the video games. But here they had to make him talk, and they made him just like a total goofball good guy protagonist. Like, he's pure of heart, and I think that really works. It was a good decision by them. Zelda, you get way more Zelda in this. Zelda's just like kick-ass character. Always. They increased Mido's role. They switched around some of the temple orders and things of that nature. But this book was a blast to read. I think the art in here was pretty damn good. The Legendary Edition actually includes some like concept art from the early video game before it was released, which was awesome. You got interviews with the manga author about his relationship with the Legend of Zelda series itself, which was really cool. You got like a bonus epilogue edition at the end of this, which doesn't really relate to Ocarina of Time at all, but it's a cool Link story. So yeah, I really, really, really like this. I liked how they fleshed out the Ocarina of Time world without like destroying the story, and the things they switched around really, really worked. If you are a fan of The Legend of Zelda or a fan of just Nintendo in general, I do think this is worth reading. They do have Legend of Zelda mangas for a lot of the mainline games. Not every mainline game, but like I know Majora's Mask has one, Link to the Past has one, Twilight Princess has like a gigantic one. I think Skyward Sword may have one. I'm not sure on that though. And there's Minish Cap has one. So there's a few out there that definitely have mangas that I do think could be worth reading if you are a Zelda fan. I probably won't be picking up any more of them, and that's not because I didn't enjoy this one. I liked it a lot, but Ocarina of Time is my favorite Zelda, other than Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And this is and they don't have like a Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom manga, so I probably won't be picking up any more. They also don't have a Wind Waker one. Wind Waker would be my next favorite after that. So yeah, this will probably be it for me in terms of manga and Zelda in general. But I did enjoy this, and if you like Ocarina of Time, I do recommend it. I don't know how to star rate manga, but if I was to star rate it, I'd say it was like 4 stars. It was great. Okay, and that is my January reading. It was a little bit shorter than my normal reading recap monthly videos, but like I said, I did read a ton of books. Like I read 18 of them. I just can't talk about them all in depth here because I am making a tier list video that is going to come out next week, probably next Monday if I had to guess. But yeah, look for that. Let me know down below in the comments what you read, or if you read any of the books I've read this month. And as always, thanks for watching.